How about around the stairwell? You think that'll work? For the right of the screen? Okay.
Maybe you want to shoot some impromptu pictures? Want to shoot some pictures? And one thing.
Oh, she's with Shane Miller. Adam.
Hi.
Hi. We were just looking at this picture from a long time ago. You and Rachel and your brother.
Is that Rachel?
Right here, yeah. You were down at the beach at my parents' beach house. Parents' beach house. That was a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
I think, let's see, Rachel just turned 5. That she had that picture of that dress on that picture.
And how old is she now?
She's just turned 14.
Okay.
And when's your birthday?
November. And I'm going to turn 14 on the 3rd.
Yeah, because I remember you guys were just a few months apart. You must have been about 4 then.
Betty, yeah, go to the first floor and then ask.
I saw your grandkids last night. Sure.
Yeah,
What?
The light's on still.
I guess that was
Yep. I bet there's things I prefer to do.
From here, and they took hold, and some of you have already felt the effects of it, but Harriet Goodman put this collection of pictures together that I think is unbelievable. I hope you agree with that. Harriet told me, I'm sorry, you know,
What are you taking?
What?
Marge Goodman was really the... Marge, all right, this is Goodman night, isn't it? I mean, we're not going to get a little technical here if I miss a couple of lines. Marge Salzman really was the quarterback on this. Last night, a lot of you enjoyed her hospitality, and she was the one that got me out of my bed and got me prompted into this program, and I'm appreciative of it. Shirley Goodman is probably the most official, and Betty Druck are probably the most unseen members of this group, but without their substance and support, we'd never all be here under such wonderful conditions. I was going to start the evening off by introducing the matriarch and matriarch. Matriarch and what? And what? Patriarch and matriarch. Right? But I felt a little guilty inside of my heart because I have a brother who is much, much older than I am that I really can't steal the scene from. So I'd like this time to introduce my brother, Alfred Helpful.
I think that's the first time that Harold has been embarrassed since he beat me in golf after I gave him 10 strokes. He told me about 3 minutes ago that I was going to have the honor of introducing the patriarch of this organization, and the only reason I'm here, of course, is because I'm probably the oldest help-on probably ever, I imagine. I don't think there's lived any help-on lived as long as I have. If you call this living. But I think this is one of the greatest ideas that I've ever attended, really. The work that these girls and guys have put into it, I think, is really wonderful. But my real purpose in being here is to introduce one of my best and oldest and dearest friends and relatives that there is. As a matter of fact, Mark Goodman, that's who I'm talking about, incidentally, if you didn't know. She doesn't know where help from. I'm sorry, am I supposed to introduce her too? I didn't know my duty. I thought I had an exclusive on Mort Goodman. I could go on for years about Myrtle for having it. I used to be in love with Myrtle. I remember you really. Myrtle and Sam were of course, a little older than I was, but they were two of the most beautiful people in the world. And seeing Myrtle here now is one of the greatest thrills of my life. So I will not call you a matriarch. I'll just say Myrtle. I'll talk about, because this guy was responsible undoubtedly for my going into medicine. I made one big mistake, though. I should never have followed him in medical school. That was like Jack Nicklaus's son playing golf with Jack Nicklaus. Being here following in Mort's footsteps in medical school was probably, well, his brother Lou didn't hurt either, but that was really something. I don't know if all of you know some of the things I know about Mort, all the things that he some of the things how he influenced my life, at least. Did you know he used to be an ice cream salesman? Did you ever know that? Yeah, he used to be a good humor. Well, it wasn't good humor, but he used to sell ice cream. Then he went really first class and became a chef. He was at the Seaside Hotel, was the salad chef at the Seaside Hotel. Very few people knew that. Did you make the salad tonight? See? Yeah. More, believe it or not, the only time I ever went to Sunday school, he was my Sunday school teacher. Remember that one? Yes, that's true. Yeah. And then when I was in medical school, he taught surgical anatomy. How an internist was teaching surgical anatomy, I don't know, but he did. You'll explain that when you get up here, won't you, Mark? Well, I'll tell you, that was just a little...
It's not in the way.
And it gives me the greatest pleasure in the world here to be able to stand here and to introduce this guy who did so much for medicine in this country, really. I'm sure all of you know he was undoubtedly the outstanding internist in Oregon and probably the Northwest. I won't include Los Angeles in that because he told me, if you don't go down to Los Angeles, that's the lousiest place in the world. That'll never amount to anything. But I won't go into that. Mort, you want to take over this microphone and carry it on to the rest?
Glad to get this show on the road. At my age, we don't have much time. Claude Pepper, Senator Claude Pepper used to say that. He said, when he went to the market, he never bought green bananas. He was 90 years old. He was right. He died 3 weeks later. Al, Lou takes the credit for you going to medical school.
Raise the mic.
And not only that, can you hear me?
Put a little bit more in your mouth.
Lou says that he taught you Hebrew, and he taught you to play chess, and he influenced you to go to Reed College and to medical school. He takes the credit for it, you know. There's enough credit to go around. We both use it. Well, see this whole mishpacha and machaton. Do you know the difference between them? A mishpacha, these are Hebrew words, Yiddish. Mishpacha is a family, the blood-related family. Machaton are the in-laws. Now, this is the strict division because there's an overlapping of it. And the mishpacha actually has some kind of distinctive honorary overtones to it, whereas the relatives by marriage is a little different story. It's slightly pejorative, not necessarily, but the division between mishpacha and the Machaton has bothered lexicographers for a long time. And Leo Weston, who writes the book Joys of Yiddish, says that he solved the dilemma by using the word clan, C-L-A-N, not K. So hi, clan. I don't quite know the logistics of what we'll do here tonight, but I think the simplest thing is for me to show a series of slides and talk from them. Many of the slides are records of the ones you see on the charts around here. And I can make a few comments, ask a few questions. And George, is that being set up with that? You know, it's all set for you. I have about 30 or 40 slides. Pardon? I have a slide together. I hope each of you has taken one of those copies of the family tree, the genealogical tree that is out there. And if you have it before you, I'd like to walk you through this thing with you as I show the slides on the screen, identify the various people here. I think it'll make it more helpful for you and a little more fun. I hope each of you has access to it. I wouldn't turn the lights out too much, you say you can't read the chart. And I think the screen would be just right. Turn it on and see how it works. This represents the three black marks there, are the three black, these are the three Goodman brothers that came over to this country in the 1890s, about 100 years ago this year. 100 years ago, 1 century. And they came over because they left Latvia under the pressure of the draft, the army draft. In those days, let me show slide 2, and then we'll come back to this. Can I do that, George, please? Yeah, notice that. This is not a very clear map, but I'd like to show you something here. Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. Pardon?
You gotta speak, you can take the mic.
Oh, yeah. That's better. Focus it now. These Baltic states have been in the news a lot in the last few months. There is Estonia, here's Latvia, and here's Lithuania. This family generated in Latvia. This is the Gulf of Riga. There's Sweden, Norway, Finland. And this is the Gulf of Riga that leads out into the Baltic Sea. Now, Riga is the largest city in Latvia. It's about 500,000 people. And about 100 kilometers northwest of Riga is a town called, I can't pronounce it very well. George, you remember what it is? No, wait a second. Here it is. It's called Valdemarpils, V-A-L-D-E-M-A-R-P-I-L-S. George found it in some of the genealogical maps he has. Valdemarpil used to be called Sasmachen. And Sasmachen is the town from which these three brothers came. This was in 100 years ago. They left because any boy approaching 20 years old was threatened with going into the army. He would be drafted and often kept there for 20 years. There were 3 ways that the young men would escape the draft most easily. One was to have an injury to the trigger finger. If they had a hand deformity or an injury, they couldn't shoot the gun, so they would be excluded from the draft. Second way is to have a foot injury. And the common thing was to shoot off one of the toes. And the third thing was to escape. And these 3 brothers escaped and left Latvia when they were 18 and 19 years old and came over to this country. Herman, the older one. Now let's get back to the diagram, George. Herman is up in the upper left-hand corner. He sort of evaporated into obscurity. I don't know what happened there. He wasn't very close to the family. I remember the people. I remember his wife, Minnie. The 2 of them lived in the old folks' home, which is on 4th and College Street. There were about 8 or 10 people there prior to the formation of the little Robinson home. And I remember going over there to visit Herman. Herman had 4 children. The one on the left is Esther, way off in the corner. And Esther was ill. She married Jake Rosenberg. Her son was ill. The 2 of them lived in the state hospital. And the other children here, these 2, Norma and Henrietta. Norma I don't remember, but Henrietta I do. I couldn't forget her. She was albino. She had no pigment in her skin, white hair, red eyes, and most of these people have a congenital nystagmus. The eyes jerk back and forth very violently. They can see and focus pretty well, but they can't move they can't stop their movement of the eyes. And A number of years ago, I came across her. I met her. She's the only white albino woman I've ever met. So I knew it was she, and I talked to her, and we commiserated and so on. And I don't know whether she's alive now, probably not. The rest of them I know nothing about. The brothers look very close. Pardon?
Was there a wild man?
I'll tell you about wild men. No, no, no. Well, I don't know of any wild men. No, she wasn't a albino. No, there's white hair. She had gray hair. That's anti-wild. The next one, Charles, was the progenitor of this whole group here. And on the right is, focus a little better, George. There. Joe is the youngest of the three brothers. Herman came over first. Joe and Charles came over about the second time. Charles went to Alpena, Michigan, and visited and lived with a cousin of his who taught him watchmaking. Joe came over and visited his brother Herman and lived with him in Portland. And now I'll walk you through here just very quickly, and then we'll get on to some of the pictures. Charles was married twice, as you can see here. First wife, second wife. See, his first wife was Sarah Wise, a beautiful woman, whose picture you'll see in a moment. Pardon? Yeah, can you hear me? Yeah. Sarah Wise bore Charles two children, Sam and Lillian. And shortly after that, when Lillian was still about less than a year old, the children were riding in a cart, in a horse and buggy, with their mother, and a train whistle, according to my sister Feely, some notes I have here, blew and scared the horse, and there was a runaway. The wagon turned over and killed Sarah, and the children were spared. Lillian was sitting on her mother's lap and was protected by the body of her mother, and Sam was not injured, he was thrown free. The two children went to live with, I didn't tell you how Charles got out to Portland. He came out because his two brothers were here. And he'd learned the watchmaker trade. He came out to Portland and got a job.